in races.
Weather was the talking point here yesterday afternoon. It has been overnight and this morning.
Yeah, the weather has been the big talking point. Obviously, after yesterday's monsoon, everyone's looking to the skies at all times. Walking over to the commentary box about 5 minutes ago, it was raining in the paddock, but as you can see from these pictures with Toprak, Keenan Safoglu and Phil Marin in pit lane, it's not raining any longer. So all the riders, all the teams, they've got some decisions to make.
What a season it has been for Toprak Razgatlioglu, who trailed by 35 points after Estoril, again by 37 after Assen, and each time he's responded emphatically to recover the lead. For the last 3 rounds, it's been Ray behind in the points and chasing.
Yeah, Ray's been doing the chasing, and for Toprak, he's looked cool and calm all the way through this season. The battle between these two riders this year has been fierce on track. The championship points has been one thing, but all the way through the season, they've been bar to bar. They've been putting tyres on one another. They've really attacked each other. If you think back to the Catalan Superpole race, that was an amazing race between Razgatlioglu and Ray. You think back to Navarro and lots of other races all the way through this season. It's been a battle on track unlike any I've seen.
Jonathan Ray has never trailed into the last round in any of his 6 championship winnings. Realistically, his hopes were dented, frankly, much earlier on in the season. Had he matched Toprak at Donington Park in Manicourt, he'd actually be the championship leader now. Those 2 rounds proving costly for him.
Yeah, and if you think back to Donington was one of those real costly rounds. We've seen it from Scott over the course of this year. The inconsistencies for the Ducati have come to the fore. When that bike is working well, it's still arguably the best package on the grid. That's why so much of the paddock are worried about Alvaro Bautista being back on that bike next year.
And we catch up with Bautista just at the right moment, almost as if you planned that, Steve. Alvaro Bautista in what is his final weekend on board Honda
Haslam for Sunday here at the Indonesian round. Lowe's suffering further damage to his injured shoulder in what was a startling FP3 crash, and Leon Haslam failing in his bid to return following surgery between late season flyaways.
Yeah, I had a quick chat with Lowe's yesterday just about that injury, and shame for him, as he said, it seems that almost every time he's fallen this season he's picked up another knock, and he's had plenty of them all the way through this year, and that tends to be the way it works. That momentum builds in a negative way, and all of these riders, they're always racing with some sort of a knock, but once you've actually got an injury that forces riders to sit out, and we've seen that for Lowe's different times this season, it really does just show how serious it can be.
Real shame for Leon Haslam in particular. We know Alex Lowe's is back with KRT for next season, and in his comments after it was announced that he wouldn't be able to continue this weekend, he was already turning his focus to next year and making sure that he's fully fit for winter testing and of course for the start of next season. For Leon Haslam, of course, it's a departure from Honda at the end of this campaign, more than likely a departure from the World SBK paddock as well, and one of the most experienced men in this category of all time. If that does turn out to be his final World SBK weekend, that would be a shame for him.
Yeah, he's going to be probably moving back to BSB on a Kawasaki, could potentially be in Endurance World Championship action as well, and that'll be interesting to see how that fits in with Kawasaki as well. Obviously Kawasaki with their Suzuka 8-hour program, that comes from the Kawasaki World SBK team. Be interesting to see if Haslam, a former rider for that team, is involved in that project in any way.
Number 15, Oliver Koenig, you just caught a glimpse of at the back of the shot, making his way around. A World Superbike debut for him this weekend, and he's made significant improvements over the course of the weekend, actually beginning to close down the back of the pack, as it were, having been a significant margin away in the very first free practice sessions. A massive step forward from Supersport 300, of course, to jump up to the premier class in the World SBK paddock, and he's managed that with aplomb.
Yeah, and I have to say Oliver's done a really good job, because he's pretty much on the same sort of pace as what we saw from Lars Gresson for most of the year. So he's jumped onto a superbike and given a good account of himself, and we'll wait and see how the next couple of years transpire for him. Obviously racing in the 300 Championship this year full time. He has had some big bike experience in the Endurance World Championship, but we'll wait and see where he goes for next year.
Yes, only 0.6 of a second away from Tito Rabat in the Superpole session here yesterday. That's bad news for Rabat, frankly, but it does also show that Koenig is getting there or thereabouts on towards the tail of the field. 18 rider entry, so a little bit of attrition, and he could be a point scorer in his debut weekend as well. At the other end of his career is this man, Chaz Davies. It's a final weekend for him in the Superbike World Championship before retirement from the series. Go 11 have already announced Philip Ertl as the man who will replace him in 2022, but a long and illustrious career as far as Chaz Davies is concerned.
Yeah, Chaz tweeted earlier in the week, 27 years since he started his racing career back in Wales, so it's been a long road for him, and I think it's easy to forget that it's not just the time you spend in World Championship action, it's the time to get to that point as well, and Davis has put in the hard yards. He's going to have earned the beer tonight for a really successful career, and what we've seen from him all the way through in World SBK is that he's one of the top riders. He's just unfortunate that his years at the top also coincided with Jonathan Ray's years at the top as well, because Chaz could easily have picked up a world championship or two to go with his Supersport World crown.
So, what are the chances of Toprak Razgatlioglu claiming the title with a race to spare? Well, you'd have to say good. A top 2 finish would do it, as I said previously, and Toprak has finished inside the top 2 in 60% of races in 2021. It is the second consecutive season that we've gone down to a last round decider. Last season, though, Jonathan Ray only needed 3 points from the final round to seal the title. This season, you fancy he needs a miracle.
Yeah, and for Ray, the miracle might come in the form of a little bit of rain in the next 15 minutes as well. We did have a few spits of rain around about 20 minutes ago here in Indonesia, so we'll wait and see if that changes at all. It did get very bright momentarily. Now it's gotten a little bit darker. The clouds starting to come in again. We're going to be keeping our eyes on the skies.
We said it multiple times before this weekend even got underway. The only way that Jonathan Ray could make up that kind of points margin, 30 points, was if misfortune befell Toprak, or if we had weather conditions that favoured Ray more than the current series leader.
Yeah, and I think a few spots of rain could bring in that little bit of randomness to the proceedings. Obviously enough, you'd expect Toprak to be really strong in dry conditions. But speaking to the riders after the morning warm-up session, Garrett Gerloff said that if you were offline at all during the morning warm-up session, there was absolutely no grip out there. So that's going to be one of the key things. If you're able to try and make some moves, you're not going to be able to venture too far off the racing line.
History, though, is against Jonathan Ray. The Superbike points leader has only changed at the final round on 6 occasions during this championship's history. The largest margin made up ever has been 12 points by Sylvain Guintoli back in 2014. So Ray will have to make more history if he's to become world champion again.